Once upon a time, 4 years ago, we were looking through some old photographs when this one cropped up. The immediate comment was, "Is that a splitty? You used to be so cool, Dad." Offence was taken that they used to be. Over the course of the evening, we discussed the possibilities of getting another split-screen van, having personally owned 24 VW Beetles, 2 splitties in my youth. The pros and cons of spending a small fortune on a bad one to do up against a small fortune on a looker, whose condition is unknown, didn't sit well with my wallet. I'm an engineer by trade, and building things is what I like to do. So, we started looking into the possibilities of building one from scratch, from steel. The majority of panels are available, but the jigs involved would be hugely expensive and huge. So, my attention turned to fiberglass, as it would. And after many weeks of trawling the internet and discussing options for mould creation from timber, clay and polyisocyanurate foam, we discovered Dubbox. A fiberglass caravan formed from the 2 rear ends of a split-screen van. After speaking to Matt at Dubbox, it became clear that fiberglass was an excellent option and very cost-effective. Now things started to get exciting. Our attention shifted to the chassis, where my engineering knowledge comes into play. An updated galvanised box section chassis was soon mocked up. Now we needed suspension. We talked to multiple suppliers of suspension units, front and rear, most of which were a reworking of the original torsion beam design. Whilst this is an excellent system, it's old-fashioned, and we decided that the specification for a Vanana would be akin to a modern vehicle, yet simple to maintain with a classic look. Red 9 design met this criteria: independent suspension with rack and pinion steering, disc brakes all round, adjustability with no loss of suspension travel, making it ideal for what we were looking for. Engines and gearboxes were not going to be a problem for us, as they were readily available. So there it was, a replica split screen in fiberglass at a reasonable, affordable price. Thoughts now turned to the practicalities of building a van from scratch. After speaking to Vosa, it became apparent that our one major stumbling block would be vehicles' emissions. And trying to achieve these emissions with 60-year-old technology was not going to be easy or cost-effective. It's worth pointing out at this moment that the only electric vehicles on the market at that time were the Prius and the Lexus RX 400h. Posing as an interested Lexus purchaser, I took my wife, who was unaware that my intentions were solely for research purposes, for a test drive. The salesman became suspicious when my level of questioning became more scientific than the average man on the street. The wife also became suspicious of my intentions when I started to walk towards the door with a look of excitement in my eye, but without purchasing a Lexus. At this point, my interest in electric vehicles was very much aroused. Back to the internet, Google everything you can on electric-powered vehicles, and eventually, come on in. Eventually, we found the Niche Vehicle Network, where we discovered, hiding under a rock, Mr. Phil Edwards from Wheeled Technologies and his incredibly fast electric-powered drag bike. After a few very helpful telephone conversations, it became obvious that Phil shared a similar high level of enthusiasm about our project as the rest of our suppliers who are involved. We were really beginning to feel we were onto a marketable product, which was a million miles away from what we'd actually set out to achieve. The problem that we face with the campervan is, if you've ever owned one, you'll know that it's not just for camping. It'll be used for going to work, going to the shops, and going to the beach, which means it needs what is the current curse of all electric vehicles: range. We were toying with an idea based around the Lexus system, where once you get over 30 miles an hour, the internal combustion engine takes over. The requirements for operating such a system were ridiculous. For the vehicle that we're trying to achieve, which needs to be simple to maintain. So we dismissed this system, and thoughts turned to using the air-cooled engine as a generator, leaving it in its traditional position at the back of the van and providing no propulsion. The gearbox would then be reworked to accept an electric motor connection through the nose cone. Following a local university open day visit for my son, I became sidetracked again, by their motorsport department this time. I really should have been in physiotherapy. Their Atom Racer had a really nice differential setup. This got me thinking. If we ditched the gearbox in favour of a similar unit, we could mount the electric motor to the front of the diff and do away with the gearbox and its complicated reworking altogether. By redesigning the rear of the chassis with a stiffened plate, we could mount an air-cooled generator and starter motor, and all our problems were solved, at least on paper. So how does it work? You get in a Vanana and drive for 50 miles. We're aiming for 100. A warning light will let you know when the battery is low, and by pressing a button on the dashboard, the starter motor will engage the generator, which will run at a constant, efficient speed, sipping fuel from injector units and turning a generator motor, which recharges the batteries. Exhaust gases are expelled through a catalytic converter, which will easily meet the current regulations for emissions, leaving you to drive from A to A plus 50 emissions free, and from A to A plus 50 to B with very low impact on the environment. By mounting the generator in this manner, when the batteries become more efficient, we'll be able to remove it and replace it with more batteries to allow all journeys to be fully electric. By now, it will be clear that, as of yet, we do not have a product, just a bunch of what we think are good ideas in a package on paper. We're not the only people who think this is a good idea. To date, we have 10 genuine requests to purchase vans, including 5 for a gentleman living on the Isle of Man wishing to set up a touring business. We have also been approached by Fat Face, who are inquiring about half shelves to bolt to the walls of their stores. A representative on behalf of Green King Brewery inquiring about the possibility of rolling shelves to be transformed into minibars. And most recently, Google's interior design department inquired about a complete van in 8-seater format for their head office in London, as a promotion tool for the launch of their Google Through the Years. All exciting and unique adaptations of Vanana, just the start of many options available to us. In order to realise these requests, we need funding. We're not asking you to dip into your pockets now, but if you want to, you can. What we're doing basically is starting an electric vehicle assembly plant from scratch. It's not cheap, and we're in the process of organising a crowdfunding pitch to try to raise the cash to get started. What we'd like you to do is to spread the word on our behalf. Social media makes crowdfunding work on an epic scale, and we really do need an epic scale. And the story I've just told you is all true. There's 4 years of hard graft in this, blind alleys, dead ends that took months to work through. You've just got the good bits from those 4 years condensed into 20 minutes. For those of you with your own project that you're considering but haven't taken the plunge, do it. You could be hiding the skills people like me are searching for. If you think it's a good idea, there's more people out there that will share your enthusiasm. Don't get downhearted when people give you no's, because there's plenty of no's out there, and it's easier to say no than it is to say yes. And for those of you who want to help and welcome on board, I've met so many like-minded, interesting, crazy and generous people through this project. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just an expensive journey to get there. Thank you very much.